There is hardly a person who would say that death is not tragic. However, I have become convinced that it is not death that is tragic, but life in our world, which is overgrown with weeds of selfishness, greed, and hatred. Death cannot be called a tragedy, because it is the liberation of our soul, which has been imprisoned in the material body for decades. And after this liberation, a life without pain and suffering awaits it, Maurice Barbanell concluded. Maurice Barbanell claimed that he discovered the gift of direct voice, thanks to which he could contact with the other world and speak with the voices of the dead. Many people turn to Barbanell in the hope of receiving some kind of message from their deceased relatives. The collected descriptions of life in the other world were included in his books. In them one can find the answer to the question of what really happens after the death of a person. We are surrounded by an invisible spiritual world. It is not located on some distant continent, but merges with the physical world. This is confirmed by those people who can tune into the vibrations of the spiritual world, hear and see it, said Maurice Barbanell. People who have this gift refute that after death, eternal sleep awaits us. According to Maurice Barbanell, after the end of earthly existence, the newly arrived spirit can actually be in a short sleep, which helps to adapt to the new life. You will be surprised that a day after the end of life, you will still be the same person you were the day before. The only difference is that you will leave your physical body behind. Your existence will continue in a spiritual body, which is an exact replica of your earthly body, Maurice Barbanell clarified. Barbanell said that the spiritual body was immune to infirmity and disease. He who was deaf in life will be able to hear. He who was dumb will be able to speak again. He who was blind will see. Old family and friendships in the other world will be restored. According to Maurice Barbanell, after a short rest, the newly arrived spirit will meet here all those who left before him. According to some law which is not known to us, those who are in the spiritual world know in advance when this or that earthly life will end. They prepare in advance to welcome the newly arrived spirit and help it to undergo the necessary acclimatization. This is confirmed by the fact that some people say they see their deceased relatives around them before they die, explained Maurice Barbanell. However, meetings with friends and relatives in the spiritual world can be short-lived. The law of attraction operates here. Therefore, only those who have similar spiritual qualities will be on the same level of life in the spiritual world. Thus, spouses who did not love each other in the earthly life will not be together in the spiritual life. Each of us after death will go to the spiritual realm that corresponds to our lived life and our character. According to Barbanell, the spirit will automatically find itself in that sphere of spiritual life for which it is best suited. Here it will not be possible to pretend that we are better than we are. In the spiritual world, not a single thought of ours can be hidden. It will be known to everyone, and everyone will be aware of who you are. Thus, in the spiritual world, no one will be able to deceive anyone. From the book by Maurice Barbanell, they will judge. People who have lived a normal life will find nothing to disappoint them when they are in the spiritual world. It is the selfish man who has to face great difficulties because of his worldly habits, which will be a barrier to his communication with his relatives. This will be his hell. Of course, those who dwell on the higher plane may, if they so desire, visit spirits in the lower realms. This they often do. But those on the lower planes cannot visit those on the higher planes. For many, life in the spiritual world may seem too ghostly and dreamlike. This is because only the material appears real to us. But for those who live on the other side, only the spiritual is real, and everything physical seems like a shadow to them, Maurice Barbanell said. Barbanell said that we can get an idea of the spiritual life if we think about our dreams. When we sleep, all the things in our dreams seem real to us. But when we wake up, we begin to think of them as something unreal. If we were constantly in a dream state, that state would be reality for us. Life in the spiritual world is as active as ours. Every inhabitant of that world begins to develop his natural inclinations in it. In earthly life there are many people who have a beautiful voice, but they do not sing. There are many talented artists who will not paint a single picture in their whole life. There are many born poets who will not write a single line. They cannot recognize their talent because their minds are occupied with how to earn their bread. In the spiritual world, however, they have every opportunity to devote time to their talents, explained Barbanell. Although there are houses, clothes, and even food on the other side, it takes no time or effort to create these goods. Houses in the spiritual world are not built of bricks and mortar. They are created out of thought. Clothing and food are created out of thought. The inhabitants of the spiritual world not only work, but also relax and have fun. In each sphere there is also an opportunity for learning. The inhabitants of the other world receive new knowledge in the form in which they wish to receive it. Many in the spiritual world are engaged in tasks that involve cooperation with people in our world. Some of them work hard to help facilitate communication between the two worlds. Others are busy with research and invention in various fields. Some of these spirits inspire people to make discoveries of one kind or another. However, people in the earthly world often do not realize this spiritual help. There are no language difficulties in the spiritual world. Here one does not use words, which are merely an artificial and rather clumsy means of communication. All ideas are communicated here by thought. Reading the works of Maurice Barbanell, it may seem that earthly life has no meaning. However, their author says that even here each of us has important tasks. By these tasks, Barbanell meant service. He said that only the person who helped guide the lost to the light, who gave strength to the weary and tired, who healed the sick, comforted the mourner, lived his life for a reason. One of the main messages I have received from the spiritual world is that we should never forget that the highest purpose of our life is the unfoldment of the Spirit. Each of us has within us the means to overcome all our vices and shortcomings. If we endeavor to express our deepest and greatest selves, we will attract the attention of beings from the spiritual world who love us, who wish to help us and through us to help others, said Maurice Barbanell.